started here, but are jumping in onto our Zoom, you can go to the gallery view, and from the gallery view, you can see all of the instructors or all our guests that we have here today. We have Miss Katowski here as well. Hey, Miss Katowski.
Hello.
Arian too.
Hi, good. Sorry, I'm disabling my
video.
All right. So you can chat with us. Any questions that you have when we get to that kind of Q&A section. And if you're watching us through the Facebook Live, you can also leave a comment there, and I'll get to it when we get to that question and answer time. All right. So once again, if you're on the Zoom, you can go to the gallery view and you can see a nice panel discussion today. So are we ready to begin there, Master Jue?
Sounds good, Mr.
We're
Jue.
all ready? All right. Hello. Welcome to Jue's Taekwondo Home and Safety Course. Hope you guys are having a great weekend here. We have a great panelist. Starting in my top left here, I have Mr. Spraggins. He's a 4th degree black belt, general contractor. We give it a little hand. Yeah. In our bottom left here, we have Master Seszko, 8th degree black belt, and also works for the police department in Ohio. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, yes.
All right. Thank you for jumping on board. I hope you have I think you're going to have a lot of interesting comments for this discussion. And as always, below us here, we have Master Jue, 8th degree black belt, instructor, Jue's Taekwondo.
Nobody.
So I guess we'll get started. Why did you want to start this course there, Master Jue? We'll start with this.
Well, yeah, we've done something similar to this. I think about a year ago, Mr. Spraggins came out. We also had someone else come out, I think, a local police officer. And we had the Ring doorbell come out, and we did a little presentation for the Pleasanton community. And people asked, hey, are you guys going to do that again? And I said, yeah, soon. But now with the new technology, I thought, why not try?
Yes, sir. All right, awesome. So how this is going to work is we're kind of go in a circle, and I'll have individual questions for you guys. And if anybody else has any comments or any questions to kind of follow up with it, we can go from there. All right. So we'll start with Master Seszko, sir. What do you think is the typical response time to get to a home invasion?
15 minutes. I think that's a national average too.
Okay. So even in like a city?
Yes. I work for a township, which is 55 square miles, and it usually depends on what I'm doing. It's usually about 10 or 8 minutes for me, but like a city or something like that. But the national average is about 15 minutes. Of course, the bigger the city, the more officers will have working, but 15 minutes is the general.
Okay. Do you think 15? Oh, go ahead there, Master Jue.
I was going to say, so typically would you say, Master Seszko, that 15 minutes is a long time, and maybe there are other cities that can respond faster, I'm guessing. And
yeah, that would be just about an average.
But by the time someone's calling this in, you guys are probably too late to stop them.
Well, there's a small percentage. Some people have been caught. I mean, I've been in a situation where I was close. If it's a high crime area, of course, you're going to have more patrol there. And that's also another factor. Is if there's an area that's high crime, then you're going to have more officers making passes through there at certain times. You know.
Right.
A lot of them are smart. They also study the way the cops do things. They'll purposely set alarms off to see response time. You know, maybe 2-3 minutes. You know, there's some of them are very smart. You know, where they'll walk. You know, cops should never be in a certain routine. You know, you get in a routine, everybody knows where you're at, what you're doing, and it's just so easy for things like that to happen.
Yes, sir. So would you say like most people when you say they study their routine, they're like sitting outside and they're testing it for like the week before. So it's all planned.
It's easy to, at nighttime, you go up to somebody's door and shake the door, say like in a business, the alarm goes off, and the next thing, they maybe walk across the street and see the response time.
Okay, yes, sir. Interesting.
I mean, some ones, I've seen broke into small businesses. They broke the window, ran in, grabbed mostly cigarettes and booze and get money, something like that is what they take, and out the door they go within a certain amount of time. No, that's the response time.
Okay, yes, sir. Oh, okay, interesting. So for Mr. Spraggins, and also for our viewers on Zoom, don't forget to be in the gallery view. I've been switching between spotlight, but we'll just stick with the gallery view. Mr. Spraggins, what would you say is the first thing one should do when securing their home? So, for example, reinforce the front door.
One thing is just, I think, even before they get to the front door, you need some kind of a motion detecting lights, especially if it's in the evening, because that'll kind of slow them down. If they know that they can be seen from all the neighbors or from, around the outside, they're going to probably look for maybe a place that's a little less obvious, a darker environment. As far as the front door, the key thing is just to have a good solid deadbolt that's mounted properly, that has a proper reinforcement plate with screws that go through the jamb and into the framing. Otherwise, if it doesn't extend at least an inch into some kind of solid metal reinforcement with long screws, they can just kick that door in. They'd be in a heartbeat. There are other things that you can do to reinforce the front door. They have tension bars that you can put underneath the door handle that wedge down to the floor. That'll slow them down somewhat. And there's always the little secondary locks that you can put on the jamb. But for impact, I would say you use the deadbolt and say a torsion bar. That will keep them pretty much from getting into the door. Right.
Is there anything one can do around their house that not specifically to the door, that could be small improvements that they could make this weekend?
Well, you want to make sure that there's no place really for them to hide as they're working their way around the house. Like you have a lot of bushes or planting or something that they can tuck in behind and kind of work their way up to a window or door. The other thing is motion lights and things like that, and maybe that even during the day, motion sensors that can activate a ring system, which I have in my house. And no matter where I'm at, I mean, I could be overseas, I'm still getting my ring notification. And we have a neighborhood watch kind of thing that's connected up to it. So there's a pretty good interconnection there. Whereas if we get a motion and we can pick up on it instantly, we can contact someone, one of our neighbors, or the local police department.
Right, yes, sir. So for Master Seszko and Master Jue, what would you think is the percentage of people that have these motion lights or rings? Because I think around in this area where we live, it's almost every other house has these rings. But what is it like for you over in Ohio, Master Seszko? Is it as big as it is over here?
I mean, there's a lot, but not as many as where you're at.
Sir.
I would say maybe 40%.
Okay.
40%.
And are you on the same page that you think that it's extremely helpful?
Yes.
Okay, yes, sir. All right. What do you think there, Master Jue? What about for us here in California?
I like the idea, and whatever can slow someone down, that's so great, right? What I kind of find with Ring is by the time I actually get that notification, especially if I'm on my phone, by the time it loads, and if I got poor internet connection, it's really slow. They could have been in and out or whatever before I can actually see them, or actually to respond and say, hey, what are you doing, right? that's one thing. I do like the idea about the deadbolt and stopping anyone from coming in. And it's not always at night. Master Seszko could probably tell you that it's probably not always at night. I recall that in Pleasanton, someone, like 5 guys in the neighborhood, during the day, during lunchtime, kicked down the door and went through it. And someone's witnessed this while they're having lunch outside. So it happens. So motion detector lights, that's not going to slow them down. If they want to hit your house, they're going to hit your house, right?
Right, yes, sir.
Exactly. During the daytime, most people were working, so that's a good advantage. And besides, a lot of people around here, they do not lock their doors, and that's one problem. They don't lock their doors. They go to work and leave their doors open.
Right, yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, moving on there. This is a question for Master Jue, and anybody else can chime in as well. When do you think is a good time, or when can you defend yourself?
I guess it's when you feel like your life is at stake, right? There's this saying, better to be tried by 12 than to be carried by 6. Yeah, that's a good, I mean, from a general analogy, maybe, but, you know, there is a lot of liability. When you defend yourself or when you're involved in confrontation, right, the likelihood of you getting hurt goes up. The likelihood of you being arrested goes up. The likelihood of you getting going to jail or it goes up. So we definitely don't want to get into confrontation. But if you're breaking in, and Master Seszko can kind of talk a little bit about that, but there are really 5 rules, and I'm not an attorney, and I'm not advising anybody that this is right, because every situation is different. But as a general rule, I think there's 5 rules, and that is, 1, that you're the innocent party, so you're being attacked, right? 2, it's happening right now, it's imminent, right? So you can't have an argument and come back later and then hurt them, right? The third one, I believe, is the force proportionate? Is shoving, if someone shoves you and you decide to pull out a knife and stab them, is that proportionate? It doesn't sound like it is, but it could be. I'm not saying it is, right? Is it reasonable? In other words, your action, is it, if you ask, let's say 20 people, would they have done the same thing? So is it reasonable? And obviously the last one is your duty to retreat. In other words, you have the situation under control or you can escape. You should do that and not go ahead and continue to pummel them. So if you break those rules, then you can't claim self-defense. Any comments on that, Master Seszko?
I agree with what you're saying. Also, size, weight, gender, all that has a factor too, and what type of action you're going to take, you know, at that time. And like Master Jue said, your life has to be pretty much threatened to be able to retaliate with the equal amount of force, you know, to neutralize the attack. But I always tell people, if you've got a chance to get out, go, you know, try to escape, walk into the next room, whatever. If he comes after you, then that changes the whole situation too.
Did you have a comment, Master Jue?
Do I have we have lots of comments, but, you know, I think what we also would like to do, we're trying to answer some questions that we kind of came up with, but if people do have questions, we'd like to answer those questions because you might have your own thoughts and your own concerns.
Right. So we'll leave that. We'll jump into that maybe at 10:40-ish, depending on how many questions we get. We have gotten a couple of them, and so we'll allocate enough time for that as well. But moving on here, we're going to jump back to Master Seszko here. What would you say is the most common ways someone breaks into the home?
Well, like I said earlier, is a lot of people leave the doors open and they go through the front door, the back door. A lot of basement windows are not locked, and they get through there a lot. I've actually I went to a call once where somebody went to the roof twice.
Wow.
And it was in a neighborhood. I mean, houses weren't very close, but somebody still could have seen him. But this guy was good at what he did. He never did had some ideas, but couldn't prove it. No witnesses, and couldn't get him to confess or anything. But he did it twice.
Oh wow. Okay. So I guess going off of that for Mr. Spraggins, obviously the window is quite an easy access point for a lot of people. Is there a better window lock that we can install?
Well, most of the modern windows now are designed such that at least sliding windows where there are little stops up in the header where they won't slide up, where they can't slide them. I don't know if anybody can see, but there's one little simple item like this that you can put in a sliding on the metal track. And it, costs a few cents, and it keeps a window from being able to be slid to the side. You can use them on sliding glass doors or sliding windows, or you just go with a simple rod or a stick laying in the track, and that really slows them, being able to open the window. Single hung and double hung windows, they also have aftermarket attachments that you can put that keeps the window from sliding up and down, that you can screw into the jambs. The next thing they would have to do basically would be just break the glass, and at that point they're making noise, and maybe that'll be somewhat of a deterrent on them. But most of the modern windows now are pretty hard to get into, even with just the standard factory latches.
Okay, interesting. I have to look into that thing that you're showing off.
Why? We have them.
They have
it, David.
Locking one.
Oh, you do? Okay.
We have that.
Yeah.
I see. So now jumping over to Master Ju. Let's say someone breaks into your house. Do you think martial arts is the best way to defend themselves, or what would be a good first step as somebody that maybe has never done martial arts, never really kicked a punch? Is there something that they can do besides martial arts that would give them a better chance?
Well, I think that, doesn't matter how much martial art training you have. As I said earlier, if you engage in some kind of confrontation, you could get hurt, they could get hurt, whatever, right? Depending on your abilities. And you don't know what that person's got. You don't know if he's got a weapon. You don't know. I mean, assuming he came in with his hands, right? So I would say, hey, if I see someone breaking in my house, really, I should probably just escape, because is your life really worth the stuff that you have in your house?
Yes, sir.
Now, we work really hard for that stuff, and we want to protect it. Now, someone could say, well, we can pull out a gun. Well, yeah, you could, but if they're, like Master Seszko said, depending on the kind of threat, how big are they? What are your capabilities? If you look at me and you go, oh, Master Ju, I shouldn't say this because people hear, right? He looks like he's pretty fit, or he's been doing martial art for many years. To be honest with you, my kicking ability is kind of shot because of my 2 hip replacement. I actually have, if I was actually involved in something, I'm going to have to really utilize some other tool where my old school Taekwondo is probably not going to work. And even martial art. But I would say martial art helps in many ways, and that is it disciplines us, it keeps us in shape. It gives us different ideas on how to handle someone as they come towards you. And we're not even have to talk about MMA or jiu-jitsu, but it gives us a sense of body of awareness, and we know what we're capable of. I think that's one of the main advantages of martial art. And so every scenario is a little different. I think the problem with a lot of martial artists is that they'll go into maybe traditional fight mode, like sparring. And that's just different from really self-defense. Would you agree with that, Master Seszko?
Yes, yeah, definitely. Right.
I don't know if that answered the question.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to me, doing martial arts and self-defense, I know it goes hand in hand, but to me, it's two different, slightly different areas. You know, in self-defense, and I teach whether I teach self-defense classes or I teach defense tactics to police officers to talk, being able to understand the situation you're in, and the more confident a student is, I'll tell all my students, the more confident you are, the better you are to handle a situation. Because if you're put under stress, you get stressed out. You don't think as good as you do, and you could either freeze up or you might not react the way you should. But the more confidence you have, the more time you have to react.
Right.
You agree?
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
You know, it's like as you go through the belt, you get more confident as time goes on, and that's the thing with police officers. Sometimes they react too violently. That's why you see a lot of things happening, because they're not sure what they need to do, but they're going to try to stop that situation, and maybe there's more violence than needed. Simply talking somebody down or spending a little extra time, that's the problem. Extra time
sir.
talking to somebody could bring that situation down.
So I would probably also say that maybe experience, right? When you have more experience in different situations, you know how to respond better, hopefully, right? And so someone that hasn't done martial arts, so in our martial art classes, right, or our Taekwondo classes, we're showing them how someone might, maybe let's say knife defense, at least you understand how it might come and how you might be able to move. If you haven't had that kind of training, you might just stand there, or you might freeze, or whatever it might be. So the more experience we have, right, and a lot of times it's simulation. I'm sure you, Master Seszko, you do a lot of simulation. Assuming this happens, this is probably how you might respond, because it's never really that way. It's all fluid.
Yeah, but yes, we do a lot of that in police training, simulation, which I like, because even though it may not be the same, you'll still be able to react to something. You know, even in martial arts training, in Taekwondo, we try to set up some type scenarios and things, because it does help.
Right. Yes, sir. No, yes, definitely agree. I guess we'll answer some of our questions. We have a couple here that have come in, and anybody can, or we'll just kind of go in a circle and get some ideas on it. Someone's asking, while installing cameras outside, what privacy laws to be considered, as cameras might capture pictures, video of the public and neighbors? This sounds like Master Seszko, right up your alley, sir.
Okay, repeat the question again.
While installing cameras outside, what privacy laws are to be considered, as cameras might capture images, videos of the public or neighbors?
So here it's out in the public. We have no law against that. I mean, if it's out on the street and they're in the view, there's no problem. Can't.
Oh, really?
You can't make them take the cameras down.
You can't make them take them down.
It's on the highway. I mean, you're not looking in somebody's window. It's not focused into their window or anything. But if they're walking down the sidewalk and they're in the view of that, it's just like at the mall. Somebody comes. We've had some situations where somebody took some pictures of somebody walking. Well, nothing I can do about it.
Mm-hmm. So what about capturing like neighbors in like your perspective, your outside perspective?
You mean a video?
Yeah.
You know, that's. I mean, people's taking video of everything anymore. You know, about everything's happening. I mean, as a police officer, I wear a video camera constantly. You know.
Yes, sir.
Taking videos of everything, of every place I go, and all that stuff. So
yes, sir.
So
I have no problem.
So Master Seszko, so maybe if I decided to aim my camera at my next door neighbor's swimming pool to surveillance that, would that be okay? Or is that like peeping Tom?
Yeah. I would end up probably going to his house and take that camera, put it someplace else.
Right. Yes,
now
sir.
you're focused. It's not like it's on your property and somebody's walking by, you know what I mean? Something like that, you know.
Right.
Now
yes,
you're kind of doing a little something different.
Right, yes, sir. All right. So another question. This one's kind of sounds like it's perfect for Mr. Spraggins. You kind of touched upon people hiding outside, having places to hide in your area, like behind bushes and stuff. So somebody asked, do you think your surroundings could help you in self-defense? So it's kind of the vice versa of that question.
So, well, I'm trying to get to the point that they're trying to ask. You mean as far as someone is trying to conceal themselves, and then you're trying to react to that concealment, or
it sounds like the person is trying to conceal from the bad guy.
Yeah. Yeah, let's go with that. So if you're trying to conceal yourself from a bad guy, is there any good places in the house where you think that
inside?
less obvious? Yeah, let's think about that.
Well, if you hear them, obviously working one side of the house, you're going to want to stay out of direct line of sight from any window or door opening or something at that point. If they try to enter on that point, then you decide what your escape plan is, primarily, I would think. And after that, you be prepared to make as much noise as possible and try to somehow say, I got my dog, I'm going to sick my dog on you if you come any closer, or whether you have one or not,
Right.
Or get right on the phone and start, calling 911 maybe at first, and say the police are on their way, or you can even call a neighbor and then, have the neighbors start making noise,
Right.
If you have an alarm or some kind of an alarm system, a lot of times you can set off the house alarm, and some of them even are incorporated with voice controls where you can actually, talk through the alarm system and magnify, your response to them.
Okay. And this one's going to be for everybody, and it kind of builds off that last question. Is it better to lock yourself in the room, like someone's coming in, or to try to make your way outside? So if you heard them come in through the front door and I'm upstairs, do I try to make my way outside, or do I just close and lock the room? What do you think there, Mr. Spraggins? Or we'll go to Master Jue. Well, what do you think there, Master Jue?
So that's a good question, I think. I think a lot of it has to do with the type of criminal we're dealing with. So my question would be to Master Seszko, would you say, I think there are a lot of people that are just smash and grab. They break into the house, they want to just take something, right? Someone's in the house, they come down, they go, hey, and they just run, right? Or maybe someone's in your house, you come home, and you confront the criminal, right? And so is that criminal going to run, or is he going to maybe threaten you? That's a different type of criminal, I think. And then I think there's another type of criminal, and that is they don't care if you're home. They actually want to be there to hurt you. And I think they have a term for that, night prowler or night crawler or something like that. Can you speak on that there, Master Seszko?
I think that if somebody's there to just go through your house, basically they're not there to confront you. And a lot of times when they do see you, they're going to leave. And if you are confronted, if you leave them an escape route, 9 times out of 10 they're going to go. And like you said, if the only time I've seen something like that happen where it turned violent was the homeowner tried to take things in his own hands and get in a fight with it. Those things happen. But generally, if you just give them an escape route where they see you, a lot of times they just leave because they're thinking you're not home. So you probably scared them just as much as they scared you. But as you said earlier, and we would call that like robbery, where somebody come into your house and they're going to rob you. They know you're there, and they're going to hurt you. They're going to get what they want. They're going to hurt you. We've had those. I've dealt with that too. Not a lot of times they know who this person is. When they come in, so that would be considered robbery.
So you say usually they know when they come in, or they know the person already.
Yeah, a lot of times they do. The ones that I've handled, people were robbed. They already knew them, and it seemed like the majority of them were elderly people. A lot of them were afraid. A lot of them were afraid to, you know.
Oh, okay,
I mean,
yes, sir.
if you can rob somebody, you're not going to just take a chance. You know,
Right.
you're going to know that there's something in it that you want.
Right.
A lot of stuff is from criminal to criminal. I've talked to a few where they're in jail, and they'll pass the information. Two or three of them have told me this to each other as they're in jail. Here's a good place to. Here's a place, you know.
Right.
So basically, and I've heard this as well, that most robberies are people. You might not know them, but they've gone through your house. Maybe you had a service done, right, or a maid that came by. But it may not be them, but they might have said, "Oh, you know, so and so has a 70-inch screen TV, or they have this, or they have that," and then your home becomes more like a candy store, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I totally agree. I think someone's actually been to your house before. It may be a friend. You've had a friend come over, and they brought a friend,
Right.
but you don't know anything about that friend. You don't know if he's a good guy or a bad guy. And
Just like, yes, the friend could be talking to another friend, saying, "Hey, I was just over John's house the other day. We were sitting there watching these." You know, so things get by word of mouth.
privacy.
Right, yes, sir. All right. Moving on to the next question. This is open for anybody. Is there any special consideration or tactics to follow when having a baby or a small child in the house during a home invasion?
I'm going to still say, hey, you've got to get out of the house. It doesn't matter. It's more important to not confront them. Get out of the house you can. So I think homeowners should have escape routes, and they should know how are they going to get out of the house, depending on where their house is, and not really hiding in bushes, unless you live on a 5-acre plantation or something, right? Get to a neighbor's house and just get out of there. If you're not able to do that, then obviously you're going to have to do some self-defense, depending on that criminal. What kind of a criminal are they? Are they going to just run? If they're not, yeah, it's going to be up to your ability to defend yourself and your loved ones. So whether that means you are trained in martial art, or whether that means you pull out a knife or a bat, and you know, these different weapons can be used if you understand the laws. It doesn't mean just because you pull out a gun, are you justified? The answer is depends on the situation, I think. Right? Would you agree with that, Master Seszko?
Yes. And another thing I wanted to add was I've done carry concealed issued license for a couple years, and just as many women as men, sometimes even more women, would register for weapons. So I mean, a lot of people in our county have weapons and stuff, you know, so they are prepared. With all this stuff going on, a lot more classes are coming out, so more people are armed with weapons.
Would you say that's because of the fact that, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, it takes you almost 15 minutes for a police officer to show up. I mean, if you're in a situation, you can't wait for a police officer to protect you. You've got to be able to defend yourself.
Right. Especially when you're traveling. A lot of elderly people, they like to travel and are afraid of getting robbed, things like that. So a lot of them carry weapons, and women, especially to work, you know. So It seems to be a big thing.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right, moving on. We have this might be up your alley there, Mr. Spraggins. What is the latest technology or approaches that are working for safeguarding delivery packages delivered to the door and left outside?
Boy, that's something I probably can't really address. Like I say, you have a camera on your door.
Yeah.
All it's going to do is see who comes up to your door. I know Master Jue mentioned that his ring system sometimes has quite a delay. Mine, for some reason, it just pops up instantly. But then I have pretty good Wi-Fi in my area. I mean, I was in Cabo, and within 30 seconds, I got a notice that someone was at the door. Well, what it was the people we have across the street that monitor the house and come in and take care of the animals while we're gone.
Yes, sir.
But even then, I mean, the ring goes off, somebody's already grabbed what's ever on the door. So unless you want to set some kind of a lockbox container of some kind to accept, maybe Master Seszko has more experience in seeing some of these things, but I don't have much input on that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it depends on your area. Things going on. I mean, people anymore can dress up as anybody and represent themselves as whoever, from UPS to whatever. But I just ask questions. Question them. See how they respond to your answers before you even confront them with anything.
What do you think there, Master Ju?
I guess we have to go old school, and you just have to sit outside all the time and watch those packages. No, I mean, if packages are left on your porch, I don't know if there's any system unless you give the delivery guy a place where they can lock it in, kind of like that Amazon box I think they have, right? And or UPS box.
On the porch, we never had any problems. So
yeah. Sorry, what was that, sir?
They always leave mine on the porch, and they leave them right out in the open. I've never had a problem with anything, but but in other areas it is. I don't know,
Right. Yes, sir.
That's the area to me. It just depends on where you're at. That would be my answer.
Right.
Like that.
Just don't leave it out for too long. Once that ring goes off, go running for the door, huh? All right. Awesome. If there was any one weapon to carry, what would you guys recommend? And it could be for beginners, never done any martial arts, or black belts. What do you think is your preferred choice when you're out and about, or you're just inside your home?
Well, that's a personal preference type thing, and again, I always look at your ability.
Yes,
I mean, for women, there's of course there's carry conceal, there's pepper spray. Some states there's tasers. They make hand tasers, but I know in some states it's illegal for people to have.
So are you a big proponent of pepper spray, sir?
I'm an instructor, but I haven't really taught any classes for I don't know how long. I have it at work, but I don't carry it on my belt, believe it or not.
Yeah.
But you gotta know how to use it. You gotta spray the person. You can't just take it out and spray it all over the place. And that's the thing that they need to do a little bit of self-confidence training to be able to use that on the keychain or whatever.
Right.
Factor. You have something in your hand, you should know how to use it. You just don't want to buy it and then wait till the situation happens and then read the instructions while it's chosen out.
Well, yes, sir. What about? Oh, yes, sir.
Well, I think that's true with any type of weapon. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine, and she was being carjacked, and she used pepper spray. In your car? How's that work? I mean, why were you rolling down the window anyway, right? But anyway, that's a different story. The problem I find with pepper spray is I think that depending on your environment, you could spray it and it could come back at you.
I've had it happen to me many times.
That's not a good thing. But I think with any weapon that you might have, you need to be able to train with it. So just like Master Seszko says, hey, you better go and test that out. Train with it. How can you pull it out fast enough? How can you execute that particular weapon? Even guns, I hear people buy guns and they never shot it. They don't really know how to use it. That to me is scary, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So people need to learn how to train with it. Even with the knife, I carry a pocket knife, but have you ever pulled it out? Have you actually stabbed something with it? Have you ever cut anything with it? It's a totally different I mean, unless you want to use it as an intimidation, but that's a different issue as well. For me, I carry a flashlight all the time. Now, why? Because certain areas don't allow you to carry it like a knife or a certain weapon. You can't go on an airplane with a knife. They're going to take it away from you. But if you need something, at least I have a flashlight that I could use at night, or I could use it as like a Kubotan. It gives me a little bit better striking ability. So that's what I always want to carry, that at least, if I'm not carrying something else. Mr. Spraggins, you carry a hatchet, don't you?
I carry a knife all the time. It's just a full knife, but that's just the nature of my, associations. But I like the flashlight idea. Like when I travel on the airplane, I have a little, I don't know, whether 4 or 5 inch, they're only like 2-cell small flashlight. That they have these LED bulbs in them. They're super bright if you need them to see things. Plus, like you say, if you pop somebody with it, they're going to hurt. So, and it's a non-offensive weapon in a sense. No one's really going to give you a lot of static about carrying it.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Master Seszko. How many people that you interrogate or detain, I should say, I wouldn't say arrest, but detain, how many of them would you say have a weapon like a knife or whatever they might have? Would you find that they have a lot?
More pen knives than anything else. If I have to just pat somebody down for my own safety, a lot of times they'll have most of the time it's a pen knife that they have. If I'm arresting somebody, of course, but majority of people seem that about every other person carries a pen knife.
That's a knife that looks like a pen.
No, it's just a small
knife.
Small folding knife. Pocket.
Folding knife. Pen knives, because they're small.
Oh, it's not a pen that looks like a knife. I mean, it's not a knife that looks like a pen. It's just a small knife.
It's a small knife, probably like you're talking about that you carry.
Oh, so it's like a Swiss Army knife.
Yeah, I've seen some small ones that they could do a little bit of damage.
All right, and moving on, we have another question. Any advice on electric tasers? Where can one buy them? Do you need a license for them?
In the state of Ohio, if you use it on somebody, there's a statement form. You should go to the police department and fill out, explain the situation, because if not, you could end up getting arrested. I mean, they make personal tasers. There's companies out there that sell them. I know in Michigan it's illegal to have one. So I don't know about other states, but if you have to use it, you better go to the police department in that area and fill out a statement.
Interesting.
So Master Seszko, just to be clear, when you're talking about taser, are you talking about the taser that shoots the 2 prongs out?
Yeah, that's what yes.
Right. So I think maybe this person might be thinking one of those little hand tasers where you just zap them.
It's like a little stun gun or stun pen, which you can use them pretty readily.
Can you say that again?
Anytime you use anything like that, you better go to a local police department and fill out a report, because otherwise, if you don't, and I've seen this happen, the person that was tased is going to end up filing a report and arresting you for assault.
Wow. Okay.
Well, I think probably that's true in general anyway. If you're in a confrontation, you need to report that right away. Otherwise, the other guy might call in and they may look like the innocent person.
Right.
When you were really the innocent person.
Right. No other witnesses but the person that was attacked, in a sense.
So you beat up somebody, you should call the police up and say, hey, I was just assaulted and this guy's on the ground over here.
Yes. I heard called me, said that somebody had assaulted him. I went down, nothing actually happened. So he a couple of minutes later, he went over and he bullied and assaulted the guy. And then when the guy attacked him back, he called me back again and said he came over to his house and beat him up. So, I mean, he tried to get this guy arrested. I ended up arresting the caller. the guy that originally said he was attacked.
Oh, wow.
Because he provoked the guy. Yeah, he said, well, somebody attacked me, but there was no proof. There was no marks, no nothing, no witnesses. I said, well, you get an attorney. I said, I'm not arresting this guy because I don't see any action or anything that indicates he needs to be arrested. The next thing he comes down, next time I come down, he said, well, he attacked me. I said, well, I said, he looks worse than you.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so he provoked the fight.
Right. Okay. Yes, sir. Do you have any comments on the taser there, Mr. Spraggins?
Well, I know you can. They're not so. I don't think they really call them a taser. They're like little stun guns,
yes, sir.
And they'll put out what 50,000 to 100,000 volts.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to have a little game where we'd see who would take a shot in their leg or something. And if you could find one of those little things, I mean.
And how much did you take?
Oh, I wasn't one of the guys who opted to do the test. But the guy we did it on, he was 6'3", weighed probably 230 pounds, and we put it in his hamstring, and it just put him on the ground. I mean, there was just enough voltage there to deactivate him right there, and he was able to pop right back up after a few seconds, but still, it stopped him.
Okay, yes, sir.
And I don't know, I mean, you can find them all over California, and I don't know that I've seen any restriction or licensing for.
Yes, sir.
Then again, using it on someone probably has consequences.
Right, yes, sir. Yes, sir. No, definitely. All right, next question, we're moving on. This is for Master Seszko. How many situations have you encountered where the victim actually defended themselves in their home?
A few. I mean, somebody as in a robbery or a burglary, something like that. Is that what you mean? How many?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. They defended themselves in their home. Yes, sir.
A few. I mean, the reason that they did, they were able to overpower the intruder pretty easy.
Yes, sir.
And that was one reason why they confronted him, or they just were surprised. The person didn't think they were home, you know what I mean? And they came in and confronted them. And so sometimes the homeowner got a little upset and just kind of put it to them.
Right. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So a few, not many.
There's a few, not many, sir. Okay. So best.
Just a couple. Just a couple. Usually nobody's. Usually they don't stick around long. If they break into a house and somebody's there, they're usually gone. I've got a lot of those calls.
Oh, okay. Yes, sir. Okay.
No, that maybe two that I've ever had where it's happened.
Yes, sir. I guess this is kind of a follow-up for that. There's a lot of curfew orders going on. I'm not sure about the state of Ohio, but for California, we have had a few curfews. But if you need to go out of your house for an medical emergency during these curfew hours, what can you do to signal that to a law enforcement? So time is of the essence when they're leaving. They need to get to the hospital. Is there anything that they can do?
Well, if I was out and somebody needed assistance and there was a curfew, and just by observing something, I would escort them. I mean, we have bad snow days here. Sometimes they put we have different levels, and it's like if it's a level 3, they don't want anybody out on the highway unless it's necessary. And but you would just, if they're doing something wrong, you just stop them. But otherwise, we just leave them alone because they're probably doing something that they need to do. You know what I mean? So I would assist if I had to.
So when a curfew, Master Seszko, that's a good point. So during a curfew, really, police officers are really just looking for anyone that's kind of loitering around. That doesn't look like they're in the right place. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yes. The only type of curfew we've ever had would be for the heavy snows and the roads are bad. They just don't want people out on the road. So we've never really had any situations where there was a curfew where people had to be in their homes by dusk or something like that. So I've never had that kind of experience.
Yeah, so we've currently have had a couple of them in our area, And so what would you say? I mean, if I had to get out, I mean, what are the probabilities that a police officer is going to pull me over and says, hey, what are you doing out here?
Here, you wouldn't have it very much unless she was broke down or unless she was acting suspicious. I mean, I got to have a reason to pull you over. I just can't pull you over for no reason to ask you something. I better have a good reason, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
Right.
That's probably true with our curfews.
Yeah.
That we currently have, well, that we might have, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
If you look like you're suspicious that you're up to no good, you're probably going to get pulled over, or you're going to get stopped, and you're going to get questioned and all that stuff.
Just or, you know, I mean, could be driving erratic. I just check to see if the person's okay. I mean, you know, they could be having a heart attack, a seizure, or anything, you know. So you're just checking on them. That's all.
Yes, sir. Yes,
They
sir.
say, hey, there's a curfew. What are you guys doing? You know, that's
Yes, sir.
probably how I would handle the situation.
Yes, sir. All right. Do you guys have any final comments before we break?
No, I think we covered a lot of good stuff. I hope people got some good information from it, and it's good to hear different points of views on things. And that's
Yes, sir.
That's the purpose.
Yes, sir. Mr. Spraggins?
No, just to, if you are concerned about how to secure your house, I mean, you go to your local Home Depot or Lowe's and they've got all kinds of little clips and bars and things that are relatively inexpensive that can reinforce the access points to your house. And I'm pretty much sold on my motion cameras and things. I have 2 of them. And I've had my truck taken from the front of my house. And ever since I put that floodlight on the front of my house, there have been no issues. Nobody's breaking in. Nobody's damaging everything. But that might annoy my neighbors, because when that thing goes on, it brightens up the whole corner. So
Yes, sir.
I'm not chasing after my truck again.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So,
Master Jue?
Yeah, I think just being smart, being aware, knowing your surroundings, not just when you're out and about, right? The awareness that not to be paranoid either, right? We shouldn't live that way, but being aware of situation. If it doesn't look right, stay away from it. You come home and something doesn't look right, don't go in. Maybe, obviously if the door looked like it was kicked in, I would not recommend going in, and probably calling the police before you go in, just because they could still be there, right? But when just being observant and being aware of your surroundings, locking the door, something simple as that, close that window, make sure that's closed, right? Basic tips, I think, would be helpful, I think.
All right. Well, thank you so much to Mr. Spraggins, Master Seszko, and Master Jue for jumping in today. Hopefully everybody got a little bit something out of this. And for our viewers, if you have any other questions, you can email them to Master Jue, and he can contact our other instructors, and he can collect some answers for you guys. But thank you again for jumping in, and hopefully we see you guys next time or sometime soon. All right. Thank you, sirs.
Thank you.
Thank you.